Good evening. Hello, just give it a moment as people join us. This time of year is always a time when people begin to move through the process of leaving behind the excitement of the festive season. And as folk go back to work or they get back into their routines, whether that's school or home life or business or whatever it is, whatever phase of life you're in, there's a return to the normality, a return to the ordinary. And folks find that hard enough, even when things are pretty good, things are pretty normal. The sort of the come down at the end of all the celebrations, the realization that whatever good intentions or whatever excitement you may have had for new things around the New Year season, and that's only a natural response, that now you have to get on with it. I hope you find yourself with the same confidence that you have purpose that you did a week ago, 2 weeks ago now, nearly. I hope you're still looking forward and expecting the good things of God in the year that lies ahead. Well, this week, as I've been trying to get back into the swing of things, much of my time has been spent thinking about the devastation that others are facing. Those of you who know us and some dear friends this last week have been sort of reaching out in the new year and trying to reconnect as we get through all the busyness. And it's a time when I suppose we're feeling quite intensely the way in which we're constrained, we're restricted because of my health, because of other circumstances, and it will be easy for us to wallow. And so one of the things that I've made a point of doing is considering how privileged we are in our circumstances, in our comfort, in our convenience, in our relative security and safety, by comparison with those for whom the start of the year finds them homeless or destitute or under threat of war or facing the consequences of natural disasters. And as I was thinking about that, and so I was thinking about some of the ways in which over the years I've learned to handle stress, I began to think about a technique that some of you might know, a technique that's known by various names, but most commonly I think is known as grounding. It's particularly useful in moments where you're experiencing sudden stress. You've just had some terrible news, or the doctor's just told you that you've got something that's ahead of you, an operation or a procedure that is intimidating, or you're about to go on stage, which is where I first learned it, and you're going to perform, and you want to make sure that you don't suffer negatively with stage fright or with excess adrenaline. And the way the process works is you count down from 5 to 1, and you go through your five senses. So you just very quietly. Some people say it's better if you say it out loud. For some, you just do it internally. But you just name 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, something that you can taste. And often I used to, because I was getting ready to go on stage, I'd be trying to hydrate and make sure that I was ready to sing. And so that would be the last thing I'd think about, the thing that I was hydrating with. So generally it'd be water last few minutes before stage, not right beforehand. And so I just go through this process, 5 things that I could see, 4 things that I could touch, 3 things that I could hear, 2 things that I could smell, and 1 thing that I could taste. And I'd be ready to go. It's really just a technique for slowing down your thinking. While you're doing it, you try and think about your breathing, and just very slowly, very calmly, you try to do it at a sort of an even pace. And I was looking at some of the images coming out of Palestine, coming out of Gaza in particular, but also the West Bank, and now some of the devastation that's been caused by the bombing in Lebanon and the aftermath of supposedly the liberation of Syria, although I don't believe anybody there's going to feel particularly free, given the appalling nature of the some of the opinions and ideologies of the rebel groups. Um, they have been liberated from one tyrant and perhaps now face another one. Thinking of the years of bombardment and loss and horror in Ukraine, and even the most recent images coming out of the fires that are ravaging Los Angeles. And as I began to think about those, and particularly the way in which society sees some of those images and panics, and particularly the way there seems to be a disproportionate focus on those who have most recently suffered the consequences of the natural disaster in Los Angeles because they are famous, because they have lifestyles that maybe the rest of us would aspire to. And so there seems to be a heightened sense of horror in the media, and yet there are people all around the world. I haven't come close to listing all the places where natural disasters or where conflict, war, and oppression are destroying lives every day. The scenes we're seeing coming out of Los Angeles are truly horrific, but they are barely reminiscent of the horrors that have been inflicted on the people of Gaza, of the West Bank, of Ukraine, of Syria, of Yemen, or in the conflicts in Sudan. And I could go on. There are places all over the world where people wake up every day wondering how they will survive to the next. And I began to wonder, well, how do you stay calm? How do you quell the panic enough that you can function? How do you keep still? Because that process of grounding that I've described, well, can you imagine if you're there surrounded by the smoldering rubble of your life and you decided you would try grounding? 5 things you can see. Well, there's the remains of my home. And there's the graves of my family. And there's, oh dear me, I have 5 things that you could see. You would just be staring at it. 4 things that you can touch when you're surrounded by ash and poison and the jagged remains of a life. 3 things that you can hear when there's air raid sirens or the sound of the planes coming, pouring water on the fires in the desperate hope that they can stop them from taking someone else's home away. The sound of air raid sirens or drones coming to attack. I can't imagine. And as I began to think about that, I began to think that so much of what the world does focuses you on the problem, focuses you on the struggle, reminds you of the sorrow and the harm. And so I thought, well, how really should we stay calm? How really can we find peace? What can the world around us fail to shake? So that there's peace. What is there? I'm sorry if we're having any connection problems. I think we're back. What do we have to offer to people in those situations? Now, and I want to say before I go any further, the first thing that we have to offer is some practical mercy. We were talking about that this morning in Harvest. And if the situation where there's a need to give, then you should give, and according to what you're able, and as God guides your giving. And if it's a situation where you can lobby for the end to conflict and lobby for your government to stop supplying arms, or to stop being partisan, or to act in a way that promotes peace, then you should do that. We should always seek peace and chase after it. We should always speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. But if we find ourselves in overwhelming circumstances, what can we do to have peace? 2 Samuel 22:47, we read this: the Lord lives, and blessed be my rock, Let the God of my salvation be exalted. The Lord lives. There are so many programs and processes that tell you how you can change. But sometimes in the middle of a crisis, what I need to know is that I am cared for, I am loved, I am protected by a God who does not change. When everything about me is being shaken, I need to know that the God who is for me is not shaken by the things that shake me. When everything that I would see as being part of my comfort, part of my security is taken from me, I need to know that the God of all comfort is with me. When I don't know where to go to meet my own needs or the needs of the people that I love, I need to understand that I can seek his kingdom, but he knows what we need. Paul writes about our Christian faith. He says, if in this life only we have hope, we are of all people most miserable. And that is certainly true. If we don't have a hope that extends beyond the limitations of the life that we know, these 70 to 80 years of existence, then what is the point of that hope? But sometimes I think we focus so heavily on that. We forget that we are the people who follow Jesus. Jesus, who when faced with a crowd that needed feeding, turned to his disciples and said, you feed them. Jesus, whose little brother James wrote about faith, saying, what good is it if you say to your friend, go, be warm and well fed, but you don't give them a coat to keep them warm and you don't give them food to ease their hunger? You say you've got faith, I'll show you what I believe by what I do. And so those things are true, but more even than that, we have a God who is for us, a God who can meet every need, a God who hears our cries and responds, a God who is our defense and our protection, our shield and our ever-present help in trouble. The Lord lives, and blessed be the rock. Let the God of my salvation be exalted. That means I'm going to lift up Jesus. I'm going to lift up his name. I'm going to lift up the one who saves me, and I'm going to look to him. So when I need to be grounded, 5 things that I can see. Well, in the natural, I might see my circumstances, but by faith, I see Jesus. I see his authority, his dominion. I see his name by which I can be, in fact, must be saved. I see that he is provider. I see that he pours out all of his abundance into my life. I see that he pleads my case before the Father. My God lives, and blessed be the rock. May the God of my salvation be exalted. 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 16 and 17. We read this: may our Lord Jesus Christ himself and God our Father, who has loved us and given us eternal encouragement and good hope by grace, encourage your hearts and strengthen you in every good work and word. God needs to be our comfort. You know, these things that happen, I think one of the reasons why the Western media is so focused in on what's going on in California it seems like these people who had everything have had it snatched away. These multi-million-dollar homes that are now just level, smoldering lots full of ash and rubble and chemicals to be dealt with. And as Hollywood burns, those who feel like their wealth has brought them security realize how fragile it is, how trivial it is, how little it can do in the face of the simplest of natural disasters. And so tonight, I want to tell you that you won't always find peace if you look to the things around you, that you won't always find comfort if you sit and you try and consider your circumstances, because sometimes they really are overwhelming. But I want to tell you that there's hope in God, that there's hope in the person and the presence of Jesus, that he is with all who call on his name, that he hears, that he saves, that he heals, that he shelters, that he provides, that he comforts. And so tonight, I can't hide from my responsibility to use my resources to seek to bring comfort and peace to others, to meet needs, to act in mercy. But in my own life, rather than looking to other people, rather than trying to look at things around me and to ground myself in the things of this world, the ground of my faith, the grounding of my hope, the certainty of the reality that I live in is the person of Jesus, who loved me and gave himself for me. In Christmas, we celebrate that he is God with us. In the midst of the crisis, he is God with you. In the moments of panic, he is God with you. When everything else is stripped away, he is God for you. And whoever calls on his name, he rescues and redeems. He shelters and protects. And when you seek him and his kingdom first, when you fix your eyes on who he is, he promises you that his Father, who has become your Father, knows everything you need. And you don't have to fret about the things that are not yours, the things that might be lost, the things which you can no longer protect or obtain or hoard for yourself, because our Father knows what you need. There are a lot of folk right now who are looking at the situations politically and socially, economically in the world, and they are losing hope. Tonight, my only hope is the same in this season of concern as it has been in seasons when I felt like there was nothing to worry about. Because my hope is not in circumstances, and it's not in my strength or ability, and it's not in the people around me. My hope is in Christ and Christ alone. The Lord lives, and blessed be the rock, and may the God of my salvation be exalted. That's our thoughts for this evening. God bless you. Pray that you have a good week, that whatever it is that you have lying ahead of you, God is your strength and shield, your peace, your comfort, and your wisdom. And God willing, we'll see you next Sunday night. God bless.